I think it was inevitable, and I've seen this coming for a long time based on the very few times that I actually watched 5 minutes.
The date is the 20th of January 2026, and inside the gated walls of Montecito's most discussed estate, the silence is deafening. For years, the world has watched Meghan Markle and Prince Harry attempt to build a post-royal dynasty that would rival the House of Windsor itself. We were promised a billion-dollar brand built on compassion, storytelling, and high-end lifestyle products. We were told that leaving the monarchy was the first step toward global domination. But today, the reality inside that chaotic castle is starkly different. Meghan Markle and Prince Harry aren't just hitting a rough patch. They are dangling precariously on the edge of a full-blown brand meltdown. We are talking about an operation with no leadership, no clear strategy, and, according to terrifying whispers from insiders, not even enough cash flow to keep the lights on behind the scenes.
And come to you in a second, Lady C. Tom, what do you think financially for Harry and Meghan? As I just said, I think everybody knows they're at best low-level millionaires.
People close to the operation are finally breaking their silence, and they are calling it exactly what it is, a disaster. They aren't mincing words anymore. What was once marketed as a fairy tale post-royal power couple has now spiraled into something else entirely, a slow-motion crash that everyone in Hollywood saw coming, except perhaps for the two people sitting in the driver's seat. When Netflix itself doesn't believe in your show enough to post a tweet, it sends a message that echoes louder than any press release. Insiders whisper that the streaming giant has effectively stopped funding anything meaningful, while Meghan's inability to organize even basic logistics is making the chaos worse. She has built a brand centered entirely on herself, without the operational backbone required to actually sustain one.
Serious financial problems for them, isn't it?
I think the writing is on the wall on this one. I think the world sees this exactly the same. They're living this extravagant lifestyle.
The real kicker here is that this entire empire has always been about one thing: selling Meghan, her image, her lifestyle, her dream. But what happens when the public stops dreaming about you? They don't admire anymore. They roll their eyes. Every time she speaks, she seems to alienate more people. And now she is trying to launch a lifestyle brand at the exact moment her own lifestyle feels less like a fantasy and more like a punchline. Take, for example, that infamous Instagram cooking video. It was supposed to be authentic, homey, Gwyneth Paltrow-style content that would endear her to the masses. Instead, it came across as stiff, robotic, and painfully awkward. Critics weren't just unimpressed, they were baffled. Why would anyone buy into this? And vendors, the people actually tasked with making the products, are asking the exact same question, but for a very different reason.
These people have been relying on this Netflix money. That source of income is going to dramatically dry up very, very soon. The future doesn't look good for them economically, does it?
No, it doesn't. And in fact,
vendors say they haven't been paid. Orders remain unfulfilled. Customers are still waiting for refunds. What started as sloppy management is now spiraling into a full-blown reputational nightmare. People do not forget when they spend money and never see the product, especially when the person behind it is a multimillionaire, ex-royal preaching empowerment while ghosting basic customer service. It creates a dissonance that destroys trust. And what about Harry? He has been noticeably absent from this entire fiasco. There has been no promotion from him, no press releases, no visible support for Meghan's brand. Some insiders claim that this distance is by design, a quiet attempt to keep his name far away from yet another embarrassing flop.
He's busy bigging themselves up in the hope that if they said they were worth X plus Y, Z would pitch in and offer them something commensurate. And
Netflix reportedly wanted the Sussexes to separate professionally, with Meghan positioned as the relatable one, the face with market appeal. But without Harry beside her, she is floundering. And Harry? He has never been cut out for this world. Commercial ventures, branding, profit margins, this isn't his lane. He was born into royalty, pampered since birth, and raised in tradition, not trained in capitalism. So the notion that Harry could suddenly swoop in and rescue their crumbling empire is pure fantasy. That leaves both the brand and the marriage teetering in freefall. According to multiple sources, the cracks aren't just financial or public anymore. They are personal, and they are widening fast.
Their profits were going to be pegged on what they produced and how well things did. So their payment has never been what people have been making it out.
The toxicity isn't one-sided. You can't have one stormy personality and expect the other to play peacemaker forever. This isn't balance, it is combustion. And when two people are spiraling at the same time, they can't pull each other back from the brink. They only drag one another deeper into the abyss. Meanwhile, the business side is unraveling just as fast. Suppliers are holding back, refusing to take on new runs because the current ones haven't even been paid for. Even worse, some buyers who placed orders through Meghan's brand months ago still haven't received a thing. No products, no updates, not even the courtesy of communication.
Montecito, and some who have private planes. And she has a reputation for trying to cadge lifts.
Really?
That
That somehow doesn't surprise me. So, Tom, in terms that you and I...
It has been nothing but radio silence. And when the people on the ground, your vendors, your customers, your fans start to feel duped, no amount of celebrity glow can cover that up. Rob Shooter's report on Substack didn't sugarcoat a thing. According to him, the entire brand is hanging by a single, fragile thread, and he isn't the only one saying it. Behind the scenes, whispers describe Meghan and Harry's business world as nothing short of chaos. Vendors haven't been paid in months. There is no leadership. There is no clear team structure. There is no financial backup plan in sight. As dramatic as it sounds, people are openly asking whether this whole operation is a scam or just wildly incompetent. Either way, it is a disaster of their own making.
Harry's horse-based docu-soap Polo, which was, I did watch it, but it's unwatchable, absolute rubbish. That came in, you're going to like this, in the Netflix charts at...
Netflix, once the golden ticket in Meghan and Harry's post-royal reinvention, isn't playing along anymore. Their deal may have dominated headlines when it was signed, but the honeymoon is long over. Netflix ran the numbers. They saw the declining viewership, the rising backlash, and the ever-growing pile of controversies, and they quietly pulled back. Meghan may still be trying to push content, but with no marketing support and a stripped-down budget, it is obvious Netflix is just letting the deal limp along until it expires. Quietly. Almost like they would rather let it die on its own than deal with the drama of pulling the plug outright.
20 million bucks a year. But the problem with these two is they didn't deliver. Netflix looked at the programs they were giving them and said, this is a pile of crap. We don't want it. That's why their deal has gone down the chute.
Insiders say what is happening behind the scenes is even worse than what the public sees. Meghan has been accused of being controlling, dismissive, and completely out of her depth when it comes to real business operations. People who have worked with her claim she doesn't listen, doesn't take advice, and often mistakes confidence for competence. To her, branding seems to mean glossy packaging and polished optics, but not actual value. That approach may have carried her image through the Hollywood hustle, but in the real business world, charisma alone doesn't pay invoices or deliver products. And now comes the bigger problem, the reputation issue, which is proving far harder to spin or package away.
For like the last 2 years, that's all we've heard. $100 million, $100 million. It doesn't work that way. You produce, you get this much. You produce, you get this much. You produce, and then when you don't produce, you don't get nothing.
Meghan has always tried to frame herself as the misunderstood underdog, the woman daring to speak truth to power, but that narrative is wearing dangerously thin. Between her public fallout with her own family, the growing list of ex-staffers who reportedly quit in frustration, And the avalanche of PR disasters, public sympathy is running out fast. Even some of her longtime fans are beginning to question the story. After all, it is one thing to be ambitious, it is another to throw everyone under the bus on your way up. And then came one particularly brutal quote now making the rounds. Meghan is trying to sell brain surgeon textbooks to people who haven't even finished basic biology. It is a cutting metaphor that sums up how disconnected her brand feels from reality.
Pretend she was richer and wealthier and a woman of more status than she actually was.
Hold on, Kevin. Correct me if I'm wrong now. We all know Meghan boasted about being.
That is exactly how disconnected Meghan's brand feels from her audience. She aims for aspirational but lands somewhere between out of touch and oddly bitter. Her cooking video was the latest example, designed to be charming, but instead it came across stiff, joyless, and painfully forced. There was no spark, no warmth, just a woman going through the motions, pretending to enjoy something she clearly didn't. It didn't sell a thing, not food, not lifestyle, not even curiosity. And then Lady Colin Campbell, never shy with her words, delivered the sharpest critique yet. She described Meghan as someone who climbed using both horizontal and vertical talents, but never learned how to actually stay at the top once she got there. Her point was brutal, but impossible to ignore. Meghan's rise was built on image, not substance. And now that the illusion is cracking, there is nothing underneath to keep the empire from collapsing. The most alarming claims aren't just about unpaid vendors. They are about ordinary customers. Everyday people who placed orders and never received a thing. No follow-up, no refunds, no accountability at all. It is one thing to struggle paying suppliers, but when buyers start reporting unfulfilled orders and total radio silence from the company, the story shifts into dangerous territory. And not just ethically, but legally. Suddenly, Meghan's brand isn't just being called incompetent. It is being whispered about as fraudulent. That alone is enough to tank a business. But when you pile on an unlikable public persona, a marriage dynamic that looks ready to crack, and a streaming partner that has gone ice cold, you have the perfect recipe for commercial extinction. Harry, meanwhile, seems lost in his own fog. His appearances feel increasingly performative, like a man clinging to relevance without a shred of real strategy. The latest example? A supposedly private letter he wrote in tribute to Prince Philip mysteriously found its way into the hands of a media outlet. It was presented as heartfelt, but the optics were bizarre, and critics couldn't help but wonder if it was yet another staged move to keep his name in the headlines. If that letter were truly private, why did it leak at all? And the timing? No coincidence. It surfaced right as Meghan's series was gasping for attention, raising eyebrows over whether this was yet another desperate attempt to stir sympathy or claw back some royal association. Critics have been quick to highlight the pattern, how often Harry and Meghan's so-called private moments somehow end up in public view. It has happened too many times to brush off as chance. And this time, the leak didn't earn them sympathy, it backfired spectacularly. People weren't moved by Harry's letter, they were irritated. Because trying to exploit the emotional weight of Prince Philip, a man they were accused of disrespecting in his final days, wasn't just tone deaf, it was downright offensive. And as if that wasn't enough, along came another clumsy PR stunt involving the Duke of Westminster, Hugh Grosvenor. A report suddenly circulated suggesting he was trying to reunite Harry and William by naming them both godfathers to his daughter. On paper, it sounded like the perfect feel-good royal reunion headline, but reality hit hard. Insiders quickly pointed out how absurd it was. Hugh is firmly loyal to William, and the royal family now views Harry as nothing more than a liability. The idea that anyone would hand their child's spiritual guidance to two feuding brothers, one of whom has publicly torched his own family, is laughable. The reality is simple. William wants nothing to do with Harry. That bridge isn't just damaged, it looks burned for good. It is not just the interviews or the explosive book, it is about trust. Every time Harry opens his mouth, he lights another match, and sets fire to what used to be a complicated but private family bond. Now, even longtime friends like Hugh Grosvenor, who once knew both brothers well, are stepping back, keeping their distance rather than being dragged into Harry's chaos. Meghan, meanwhile, is fighting a battle of her own, and her past is catching up with her in ways she clearly never anticipated. Former staff members, long silenced by NDAs and airtight secrecy clauses, are reportedly furious. And insiders warn that if those legal walls ever collapse, more than 100 people could step forward with firsthand accounts of her conduct, especially during her volatile time at the palace. We are not talking about minor workplace spats here. We are talking allegations of outright mistreatment and public humiliation. One notorious story describes Meghan berating a staffer over an ironing issue and even throwing fabric back at them in disgust. These aren't petty complaints. They form part of a much larger, far darker pattern that paints a deeply unflattering picture of Meghan's true behavior. Meghan isn't just difficult, she is divisive. And when you are trying to build a brand rooted in grace, elegance, and female empowerment, being branded a nightmare boss with a trail of scorched bridges is a massive liability. And that leads straight into the financial side of the meltdown. The Sussexes have been portrayed as fabulously wealthy, but insiders insist their cash flow isn't nearly as strong as it looks. They may live like royalty, but they aren't bankrolled like it. Big ticket projects demand big ticket funding. And according to those familiar with their operations, Meghan and Harry simply don't have it. That is why vendors aren't being paid. That is why products aren't shipping. It isn't just bad management, it is a cash crisis. That is why even the most basic logistics are falling apart. There is no war chest, no secret vault, just image. And image doesn't pay invoices. So what is left? A fading brand, a fractured marriage, unpaid suppliers, disappointed fans, and a growing public consensus that this isn't a power couple anymore. It is a cautionary tale. Unless something drastic happens soon, the final chapter may already be writing itself. Not as the comeback Meghan and Harry once promised, but as a complete collapse playing out in real time. The implications of this financial instability ripple outward, affecting every aspect of their lives in Montecito. The lifestyle they have curated requires millions of dollars annually just to maintain. We are talking about the mortgage on the sprawling estate, the private security teams that operate around the clock, the legal fees for their endless lawsuits, and the PR teams on retainer in both the US and the UK. When the revenue streams from Spotify dry up and Netflix tightens the purse strings, that burn rate becomes unsustainable. The panic sets in not because they are poor by normal standards, but because they are poor by the standards of the world they are trying to inhabit. They are trying to keep up with the Clooneys and the Winfreys without the decades of accumulated wealth or the current income streams to match. This financial pressure cooker inevitably spills over into their personal dynamic. Financial stress is the #1 cause of divorce for ordinary couples, and it is no different for celebrities, even royal ones. When Harry looks at the bank accounts and sees the dwindling numbers, he must wonder if the sacrifice was worth it. He gave up his military titles, his place in the line of succession, his friendships, and his family for a life of financial independence. But independence is a double-edged sword. It means you are responsible for your own survival. There is no Duchy of Cornwall to bail you out when a business venture fails. There is no palace machinery to smooth over a PR disaster. They are out in the cold, and the wind is starting to bite. Meghan, for her part, seems to be doubling down on the strategy that got her here: control. She is reportedly micromanaging every aspect of the brand launch, from the font on the website to the color of the packaging. But this need for control is stifling the very creativity and agility that a startup needs to survive. Employees are terrified to make a decision without her approval, creating a bottleneck that stalls progress. Ideas die on the vine because they don't fit her exact vision, even if that vision is flawed. It is a classic case of a founder who cannot get out of her own way, and the business is suffering for it. The silence from their celebrity friends is also telling. In the beginning, everyone wanted to be associated with the Sussexes. They were the exciting new thing, the rebels who stuck it to the establishment. But as the drama has dragged on and the complaints have piled up, that association has become toxic. Hollywood is a town built on relationships and reputation. If you are known as someone who burns bridges and leaks private conversations, people stop inviting you to the party. The invitations to the Oscars, the Met Gala, the high-profile dinners, they are drying up. Meghan and Harry are finding themselves isolated on an island of their own making, surrounded by paid staff but lacking genuine allies. And let's not forget the children. Archie and Lilibet are growing up in the shadow of this chaos. They are the unwitting heirs to a legacy of conflict and instability. The Sussexes have made a point of keeping their children out of the public eye to protect their privacy, which is commendable. But one has to wonder what kind of environment they are being raised in behind those closed doors. Is the tension palpable? Are they shielded from the financial stress and the parental discord? As they get older, they will inevitably ask questions about their heritage, their family across the ocean, and why they are estranged from their grandfather, the king. The answers they get will shape their worldview and their own relationships with the monarchy. The tragedy of this situation is that it didn't have to be this way. There was a path where Meghan and Harry could have succeeded. If they had been patient, if they had listened to advice, if they had focused on service rather than self-promotion, they could have built a meaningful legacy. They had the platform, the resources, and the goodwill of the world. But hubris is a powerful drug. They believed their own hype. They thought they were bigger than the institution that made them famous. They thought they could rewrite the rules of celebrity and royalty to suit themselves. They were wrong. Now, as they stare down the barrel of financial ruin and reputational collapse, the options are limited. They can try to pivot again, perhaps with a tell-all book from Meghan or a reality show that fully exposes their lives. But that is a path of diminishing returns. Each revelation is less shocking than the last. Each complaint feels more petty. The public is fatigued. We are tired of the drama. We are tired of the lectures. We just want them to go away and live the quiet life they claim they wanted. But a quiet life doesn't pay the bills in Montecito. And so the cycle continues, the desperate PR stunts, the half-baked business ventures, the leaks to the press. It is a frantic scramble to stay relevant, to keep the cash flowing, to keep the dream alive. But the dream is dying. The meltdown is here. And the world is watching, not with admiration, but with a mixture of pity and disbelief. The castle is crumbling, and the king and queen of Montecito are ruling over a kingdom of dust. The final act is approaching, and if history is any guide, it won't be a happy ending. It will be a lesson in the perils of ambition without substance, and the devastating cost of burning down the house you live in.